Why do we call them sea monsters but never land monsters? It might sound like a pointless distinction, but the difference could have had huge consequences. Take Megalodon, the enormous shark that terrorized the oceans 23 million years ago. As far as we know, it lived only in the sea. But what about Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat that stalked the Americas until 11,000 years ago? Because this big cat regularly hunted on dry land, we think of it as a land monster. But it would be more accurate to call it a monster of both worlds. See, Smilodon was perfectly adapted for life on land, not water, and yet it needed the sea to survive. Earth's greatest monsters didn't just crawl out of the primordial soup, they came from the sea. Today, I'm going to take you back to a time when the seas teemed with creatures that seemed straight out of nightmares. And you won't believe the horrors that lurked beneath the surface. So get ready to dive into a world where reality was scarier than fiction and discover the truth about the real monsters among us. In the vast expanse of Earth's history, there is a period that stands out as a hotbed of monstrous activity, the Cretaceous period, which lasted from around 145 to 66 million years ago. During this era, our planet was home to some of the most fearsome creatures that have ever roamed or swam in our world. But what if I told you that all of these creatures may have been brought together by one particular place? Enter the Western Interior Seaway, a large body of water that once dominated the interior of North America. Around 100 million years ago, much of the landmass that we now know as North America was divided into two separate pieces of land by a vast and mighty sea. At its widest point, this sea stretched for around 600 miles, while its length reached a staggering 2,000 miles. Despite its immense size, however, the Western Interior Seaway was relatively shallow, with an average depth of only around 2,500 feet. This created a unique environment that was both warm and sunlit, rich in nutrients and teeming with life. It was in this sea that some of the largest and most fearsome marine creatures known to man evolved and thrived. Imagine the shock and awe that these creatures must have caused in their own time. 40-foot Mosasaurs with hydraulic jaws that could shear through any armor like butter. Sharks larger than great whites and man-eating fish that could rip apart their prey with ease. These were the denizens of the deep that ruled the Western Interior Seaway with an iron fist. And at the center of it all was the mighty Parapazosia, a member of the octopus family that grew to truly monstrous proportions. This colossal squid-like creature is believed to have weighed up to 3 times as much as the colossal squid that we know today. It's hard to imagine anything more terrifying than being stalked by such a beast as it glided through the water towards you, its massive tentacles reaching out like hooks to drag you down to a watery grave. Yet these creatures were just a small part of the nightmarish landscape of the Western Interior Seaway. To really understand the full scope of this monstrosity, we need to look at how it shaped the world around it. You see, the Seaway wasn't just a home for these creatures, it was also a catalyst for change. By splitting North America into 2 separate islands, it created a unique environment that fostered competition and ultimately led to an evolutionary arms race. The eastern island, named Appalachia, was home to some of the strangest creatures that have ever existed. Raptors with knife-like claws that could slash through flesh with ease, a giant crocodile-like beast called Deinosuchus, which weighed in at a staggering 8 tons. And perhaps the most terrifying of all, Dryptosaurus, a tyrannosaur with grappling hook arms that could reach out and pull its prey towards it before tearing it apart. Meanwhile, on the western island, now known as Laramidia, the pressure was equally intense. There, the ancestors of Tyrannosaurus rex evolved into gigantic beasts with 3-foot horns. Ankylosaurs, with club-like tails that could smash their enemies into pieces, and otherworldly creatures that would make any nightmare seem tame. To say that the Western Interior Seaway was a hotbed of monstrous activity is an understatement. It was here in these isolated environments that creatures evolved to become larger, fiercer, and more aggressive than ever before. And as the millions of years rolled by, the competition for resources and dominance led to the creation of some truly terrifying beasts. The thing is, though, that the story of the Western Interior Seaway is not just about these creatures. It's about how they interacted with each other and with their environment. The Seaway itself played a critical role in shaping the world that these monsters inhabited. It provided a source of food and water, but it also created a barrier that kept populations of monsters separate. This isolation allowed different species to evolve and thrive in different parts of North America.
Oh yeah.
The Isthmus of Panama emerged from the ocean, connecting North and South America and closing the seaway off to the Pacific Ocean. This dramatic event had a profound impact on the creatures that live there. Many species went extinct, unable to adapt to the changing environment, but others found themselves in a whole new world. The populations of monsters that had been separated for millions of years found themselves thrown together in a single ecosystem, and the results were nothing short of catastrophic. As the Western Interior Seaway receded, it left behind a legacy that would live on for millions of years. The area that it once covered became known as the Hell Creek Formation, and it quickly became the deadliest ecosystem that had ever existed on land. In this strange new world, the monsters of the sea met the monsters of the land, and the result was an evolutionary freefall. Creatures that had once thrived in the Western Interior Seaway found themselves on solid ground, forced to adapt to a whole new way of life. Meanwhile, the monsters that had evolved on land found themselves in a whole new environment, one that was filled with aquatic creatures that they had never seen before. It was during this time that some of the most famous monsters of all time roamed the earth, or rather the sea. Creatures like Tyrannosaurus rex, with its 12-ton bulk and 60,000 Newton bite force, roamed the land, hunting for prey. The Catharaptor, a 20-foot-long predator, stalked its victims, and herds of Triceratops with their 3-foot horns and bony frills were ready to defend themselves against any threat. The Hell Creek Formation was truly a battleground, and the monsters that lived there were perfectly suited for it. And then there were the newcomers from the sea, the ones that had survived the receding of the Western Interior Seaway and found themselves in a whole new world. Some of these creatures were smaller than their relatives that had stayed behind in the ocean, while others were just as large and just as fearsome. Together, they created a menagerie of monsters that was unlike anything that had ever existed on Earth before. The age of the dinosaurs was coming to an end, but that didn't mean that the monsters were disappearing. In fact, it was during the last days of the Cretaceous period that some of the most terrifying creatures ever known to man roamed the Earth. The Western Interior Seaway may have been a thing of the past, but its legacy lived on in the Hell Creek Formation. And it was here that the ultimate predator evolved, Tyrannosaurus rex. And so the reign of the monsters continued. For millions of years, they ruled the Earth, shaping and reshaping it according to their will. They were the masters of their domain, and nothing could stop them until, of course, the asteroid struck. The age of the dinosaurs was coming to an end, and with it, the reign of the monsters was over. But their legacy lived on in the fossil record, reminding us of the incredible creatures that once roamed our planet. The Western Interior Seaway may have been a thing of the past, but its impact on the evolution of monsters was undeniable. Without this vast body of water, the ecological pressures that led to the creation of some of the most fearsome creatures known to man would not have occurred. The isolation of the sea, the competition for resources, and the sudden emergence of new environments all contributed to the creation of a menagerie of monsters that roamed the Earth for millions of years. From the colossal squid-like Parapasosia to the bone-crushing Ankylosaurus, these creatures were perfectly suited for their environment and perfectly adapted to survive. So next time you hear someone refer to a prehistoric monster as a sea monster or a land monster, remember that many of these creatures spent their entire lives in both environments. And it was the interaction between these two worlds that led to the creation of some of the most terrifying creatures that have ever existed. The Western Interior Seaway was more than just a body of water. It was a cradle of monstrous activity, an evolutionary proving ground, and a gateway to a whole new world. It was here that the true monsters of Earth evolved, and it's here that their story began. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.